Adam Kramer, National College Football Analyst, BleacherReport.com. How are you, my friend? Welcome into the game in T-Town.
Good to talk to you, buddy. Now, I just envision you just, in an empty room. Where you at? You're always the early bird. I know that. So describe the scene for me because I haven't been listening.
Okay. All right. So here we go. I'm here on Audio Avenue, and there's probably about 15 tables. There's a guy from Fox News that is setting up across the aisle from me. I believe that's the Fox Sports affiliate. I think that's what he's doing. I think it's all together. No other stations, but it's Audio Avenue. They're hanging the billboards. What a beautiful location. I mean, we got the sun coming in. You know, we'll build a little vitamin D throughout the week. We've got the banners that says hashtag CFB playoff being hung, Bay Area 2019. I need to put some Twitter photos out. I'll do that because right now
everybody's just ragging on this thing, man. Like that's everything people are saying is what a disaster. Anyone who's ever been out there knows, though, when you do get out there, it's nice. It's really nice. So I don't know how many people are going to go, and I know it costs an arm and a leg to get there, but boy, oh boy, it's some good scenery.
Well, Adam, let me take up for the fans just for a second. Clemson and the guy that you hear behind the lift, one of those lifts that you get up and the deck raises. They're hanging these billboards. I think they got two two more letters. They're currently on CFB Play, and then I think they're done. And so the beeping noise that you're hearing, but these guys are painting this up. It's our fault. We got here early. We tried to beat everybody on the scene. Alabama comes in tomorrow, but Clemson and Alabama fans are broke, Adam, and I can't blame them. I mean, you know what I mean? No. I mean, it's a long way from Clemson to Dallas and from Tuscaloosa to Fort Lauderdale. Get back on a plane in a short amount of time, buy a ticket. Most of them are already sold out.
This is a tough trip, man. I mean, this is the toughest of trips. So, this has become a yearly ritual that you got to put away in the piggy bank. The only problem is when it costs you $1,000 per person to get on a flight and who knows what, and food and hotel and everything else over the course of a handful of days. I understand. And look, the home experience is great, man. I love being at games, but you get the 4K up, you pay what you want in food and beverage, and you could save yourself a few $1,000s. And there's no doubt that, the term fatigue, I'm fatigued by the term fatigue this week when it comes to Clemson and Alabama. But when it comes to the fan base and the people that show out, and these, by the way, are the two best traveling fan bases that I've seen in terms of playoff and everything else. They've been fantastic. Clemson really these last few years has really showed up, and I love that. I get it, man. It's a great game, though. That's the problem. Like, this is the game of all games, and lost in the madness of where it's being played. And no, you shouldn't play a game out there. But lost in the madness of it all is just how darn good this game could very well be.
Adam, you're one of those guys, and no, you're not a biased member of the media. You're a guy that you call it the way that you see it. You've written some fabulous pieces. The Josh Jacobs story, you've documented and helped us talk about the dynasty. 12 years ago today, Nick Saban was introduced as the football coach at the University of Alabama. If I would have walked up to anybody, maybe you, and said the guy that just left Miami is going to go build the greatest sports dynasty and will have an opportunity to go past Coach Paul Bear Bryant, what would you have told me?
Well, look, no matter how good of a coach he was entering that, he was still a darn good coach. I would have told you were crazy because what he's doing defies sports, truly. This is a run that is not supposed to take place. I don't care what you coach. I don't care what level. Like, you are not supposed to do this when you look how difficult it is to replenish and recruit. This is not like having Drew Brees. You can't have that guy for 10 or 12 years. That's been the most amazing thing about Saban to me is, of course, he'll attract the best players, but that is, A, not easy to do, and B, to deliver on the vast majority of these guys is what is most impressive. So as you are able to look back on it, and it is always odd, right? I've written a story about Nick Saban's statue in Tuscaloosa. I stood out there for 12 hours, and why I did that is I think there's a unique conversation that takes place when you're talking about a living legend and someone who's actively defining their legacy. and this is something he's doing. So look, man, if he's not to win another one, let's say Clemson wins, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, and Nick Saban never wins another title, this is the greatest that I've ever seen. And I'm always careful to talk about, how stacking him up to Bear Bryant, because I never lived in that moment. But I do know this: he is the best coach in sports that I have ever known and probably will ever know. And I'm enjoying every bit of what he's doing at Alabama. It does not get old. You and I have talked about this at length, whether you want to compile that with Clemson or just Alabama. He's winning in so many different ways. And this year specifically has been just such a jolt of unique energy, the way they've done it, that it's been a blast, man. I really enjoyed watching excellence, and it doesn't get any better than what they're doing.
Adam Kramer right now, BleacherReport.com, National College Football Analyst, and man, I gotta get into the conversation, because you've also written about Dabo, you've written about the 19-year-old freshman phenom in Trevor Lawrence, but I want to go back to an article that you talked about for just a couple of minutes, and a lot of content there, BleacherReport.com. But you wrote and documented about Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
What a switch! What a switch! It seemed like at the midpoint, somewhere in the season, he just hit a switch, and now he's the best running back on the roster.
It's crazy, man. Look, I've talked to Josh a lot over the last year plus, and let's go back to when I first started writing or talking to him about this story. He's a third running back. He's got a broken foot. He's coming off an injured hamstring. He doesn't play much in the championship game, and he's thinking about transfer. He almost did transfer. He told me that. He wasn't shy about it. He looked at the reality of competing against two of the best running backs in the country, and it was a chance that he'd leave. He stayed, and clearly healthy, was good throughout the year. What has been amazing, and look, throughout the season, we tried to figure out, when are we going to write this Josh Jacobs story, or when are we going to publish it, because we haven't written. I'm talking to Josh. We want it out there, and we're just kind of waiting. And what I kept saying to people, and this is kind of the fun interaction you see behind the scenes, is it's his time is coming. His time is coming, and sure enough, he shows out. So I know other people have told his story now. The talent is overwhelming. Is the thing that I've noticed specifically, is just how good he is, and the moments he's had, whether it's running somebody over, whether it's catching a pass, he can do so much. And it's been a joy to watch, man. Again, he's got an incredible story of the places he's been, and he's not your traditional Alabama guy. This is not a 5-star kid who came in. This was a 3-star kid who Alabama offered like 10 days before signing day. So, it's just been a pleasure to watch him work. And yeah, what running back right now, maybe with the exception of a couple guys on your team, would you take over him in the draft? I think a difficult decision for him, at least in the moment, has probably gotten a lot easier as he's progressed.
Let's just talk about that 19-year-old freshman phenom, Trevor Lawrence. How good is he, Adam?
He's awesome. I mean, and I've got another story coming out him tomorrow. I've talked to scouts. I've talked to former coaches. Like, this dude is legit. This is a 6'6", and standing next to him, I think, is the most striking thing. He's 6'6", he's 215 pounds. He's long, he's rangy. He can move a little bit, and I think that's really important against Alabama, because he's probably going to be running for his life, at least for part of that game. He is as impressive of a traditional quarterback prospect as I've seen. What I mean by that, if you're gonna create a quarterback from scratch, just in terms of height and intangibles, this is the dude. What I also am excited about is this is such a different way to do it than Tua. I mean, they are so very different and so very excellent, both of them, that I think it's gonna be a blast to watch these guys go at it. But he struggled a little bit against Notre Dame, and then in the second quarter, threw for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. So this is a kid, and if you watch Tua in the title game, Trevor Lawrence is not a finished product, but he's getting there. And I think this is, we saw Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to say this is the best quarterback Alabama has played against, because Deshaun Watson at his greatness was a cheat code. But this is a really legitimate test for Alabama. And then he's surrounded with players that Alabama has recruited, right? I mean, that's the big difference with me and Clemson. You and I stood on the sideline 4 years ago, and it was different. Clemson was a lot smaller. They had bellies. Okay, this was like the prototype version of the team, and they're still pretty darn good. 4 years later, right? That's gone. They're not necessarily Alabama in terms of depth and talent, overall talent, not yet. But, man, they're the closest thing to it.
Adam, Vegas has adjusted the line. It opened at 7. It's down to 5 at some spots, 5.5 at others. You don't see any 6s, 6.5. It's 5.5 or 5. When you begin to break this game down, what does it come down to?
I think a lot of it is – here's my thing with Alabama. Is it possible, even in a playoff game, that this team has looked disinterested? Would you say that? I mean, I thought against Oklahoma they just looked disinterested. Like, yeah,
uncharacteristic
of
Nick Saban's teams. Yeah, uncharacteristic of Nick Saban teams. Mental. Oh.
Well. So to that regard, who is this team? We know Alabama is great. I'm not going to be like, let's not dissect it much deeper than we need to go. But I think those are the kind of mistakes. This is a team that can get you, man. So as I look at the spread, I'm not surprised that it's come down. Like, this is two unbelievably gifted teams who have not lost. And I do think Clemson is probably peaking at the right time. Alabama, I think the extra week for Tua, I think that was the really big thing for me to see is clearly he was healthy, which was huge. I'm curious to see in terms of another week what that's going to do. I think it's going to do wonders. So I'd love to see that, and certainly the time off helped the knee as well. So in terms of I think a lot of this, kind of funny, we're going to talk so much about the quarterbacks, and you've got some defensive mainstays, whether it's Quinnen Williams and Christian Wilkins. How about the wide receivers in this game? I mean, how many first-round wide receivers do you have in this game? I think you've got a couple on Clemson. I think you've got at least a couple on Alabama. You may have 4 or 5 first-round wide receivers playing in this game, and guys that aren't just, run past you, but guys that can make plays. So as weird as it is, and the quarterbacks are great, and ultimately they're going to decide it, I think, the wideouts have a chance to really kind of separate. And I think that's going to be fun and very, very different for these two teams.
Adam, and when it's all said and done, here in the Bay Area, you know these two teams. You get it.
Yep.
Maybe Alabama was a little disengaged last week. I don't know. I mean, they come out, flash and dash, and then they sort of called the dogs off a little bit, and then they sort of became complacent. Who's going to win this game, Adam?
I like Alabama, but I think it's close. In fact, I think it has a chance to be epic. I think ultimately, whether were disengaged, whether they were sloppy, I still think there is something to Tua, and I still think Clemson defensively, which is brilliant against Notre Dame, I think this is a really tall task. I get why people are betting this down from 7 to 6 to 5.5. I could certainly see Clemson cover. I could see Clemson winning. This doesn't feel like your normal Alabama game. Like, this is, in most of these games, you feel like Alabama just has this unmistakable physical and emotional edge. And I think they still have that because of who they are and the fact, we saw these two teams last year. And, look, Clemson got one, but Alabama's got plenty. But I think it's a lot smaller than it's supposed to be, and I do think Trevor Lawrence is up for it. So I think ultimately Alabama gets the win. Tua's going to play unbelievably well. The playmakers are going to play really, really good. It's going to be high scoring. It's going to be fun. Truly, this to me feels like a game that has a chance to be an all-timer, which is why a lot of the talk right now about, fatigue and all that, I just don't get. I mean, these are the two most talented rosters going up against each other in a championship game of any game I can remember since USC Texas. Like, that is my level of interest in this game. I think this is as good as it gets.
Adam Kramer, I know there's an article that you will document this great history of the University of Alabama, man. I appreciate you in a very busy time of the year helping us understand Clemson, and we didn't even have a chance to touch 2 of the articles that is published there, BleacherReport.com. You could also connect with Adam, and straight up. Now, he's got a really kind of cool Twitter account. His name is Adam Kramer. We feature him, but you can find him on the Twitter account, Kegs and Eggs. Kegs and Eggs. You can find him there. He's a guy that loves to tell stories, and really special stories. A little deeper than just the the 300, 400-word article. This one goes really, really deep in so many different articles. The Josh Jacobs, the Tua story, and then learning a little bit about Dabo and learning more about Dabo and Trevor Lawrence. Adam, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being a part of our show.
Likewise, brother. Talk to you soon, man.